If you were, or currently still are, a child in the UK, then odds are at some point in your life your parents have packed you up, bundled you into a car and taken you to one of the many seaside towns up and down the country for a few days away at a holiday camp during the summer break. In fact, almost like a rite of passage, the holiday camp getaway is as British as fish and chips or inherent seething politeness. There were two main players in the holiday camp trade when I was growing up, and they were Butlins and Haven. And while I've never been on a Butlins holiday, I have several fond memories of Haven. To an international audience, Haven holiday camps were basically mass trailer parks designed around the idea of kiddie adventure fun. These were usually near beaches and would run for a good chunk of the year, offering various on-site leisure activities, like a swimming pool, parks, arcades, and a cabaret club. There was even a kids club to keep the young ones busy and out of the hair of their parents, who'd usually go for the on-site pubs, bars, bingo halls, and the chance for some peace and quiet while Junior was being entertained by some holiday reps. They were always advertised as sunny, smiley places, though in my personal experience it was usually about 1 or 2 degrees Celsius, and there was usually a fist fight at some point. British seaside towns aren't always as picturesque as they're advertised, and in certain parts of the country, particularly Blackpool and Towyn come to my mind, you'll often never be more than a few steps away from either a completely drunken family, dilapidated shop fronts, grisly arcades, and drug dealers. That's not to say all holiday towns are like that all the time, mind. And that's not to say that those sites ruined my holiday experience. No. My memories of Haven caravan sites in the 90s were that of summer afternoons on the beach, paddling in the sea, visiting local zoos and landmarks, and spending frankly an astounding amount of money in the arcades. It was while on a Haven holiday that I was first introduced to the Simpsons arcade game, easily one of the best games I've ever played. But I digress. Haven's kids clubs were called the Tiger Club, and it was established in the mid-1980s. Rory the Tiger was their mascot, and he was best known as the strong and charismatic leader of the pack type, who was largely modelled at being a role model for the kids. He was also there to help take the pressure off the no doubt struggling summer camp workers, who would have had to have put up with as many as 40 screaming and irritable kids of various ages for the majority of the summer. As time went on, Rory was joined by many other friends, including an anxious elephant called Anxious, a bear, a gorilla, and finally 2 human characters who had giant fiberglass heads. Quite why this was the case, I'm not sure, but costume-wise, these guys were basically cheapo Chuck E. Cheese knockoffs, though distinctly more moral. The Haven mascots were there to teach kids right from wrong, and also to party, but mainly to teach kids right from wrong, and make them aware of animal conservation. But right from wrong. And so we arrive at Zoo Troop, a 2007 direct-to-DVD set of short features produced by Bourne Leisure, the company that owns Haven and Butlins holiday camps, and The Character Shop, an animation company that's best known for its work in advertising in the UK, having produced multiple channel idents for CITV, as well as some of the more recent Churchill Insurance adverts. This disc is 65 minutes long and contains 3 shorts, 1 animation and 2 live-action plays. I'm not entirely sure what the function of this DVD was, whether it was given away as a promotional thing to try and encourage kids to join the kids club, or whether it was maybe available as some kind of exclusive souvenir DVD so that the young'uns could remember their ace time in the Tiger Club. I actually got in touch with Haven regarding this, but their response was a bit wishy-washy. I honestly don't think they even know themselves at this point. All I do know is that there's at least 1 more Zoo Troop DVD out there. though whether it differs from this one at all or whether it's just a repackaging, I couldn't honestly tell you. There are at least also 3 more animated episodes of the series out there as well, and they're available on YouTube. The first feature on this disc is the 17-minute long aforementioned animation, produced by the Character Shop, which deals with the Zoo Troupe, Haven's holiday mascots decked out in people clothes who are shown to be some kind of news team? It never makes it all entirely that clear. They broadcast the latest goings-on in and around the zoo to the rest of the zoo animals, and almost immediately I found my first major problem with this concept. The zoo troupe consists of 4 animals who dress in human clothes and speak like people do. The troupe also features Ned and Poppy, 2 actual living, breathing humans who don't at all seem fazed by the anthropomorphic news team. Then there's the rest of the zoo, which is primarily made up of actual zoo animals who can't speak and don't wear people clothes. Which at first left me thinking, well, okay, at least they're differentiating all the different classes of animate here. You have literal animals, animals who think they're people, and actual people. But then to complicate the matter, the plot revolves around 2 African rhinos who are on a special visit to the zoo, who get stranded in the snow, and the zoo troupe have to go and try and rescue them. The rhinos are structured to look like actual rhinos, but they talk like people. So either the zoo animals who aren't seen to speak English can fluently but are choosing not to, or the showrunners just didn't really care. I'm inclined to believe the latter. I think probably one of the biggest problems with all the features on this DVD is simply that the scripts just aren't really all that interesting. I mean, I think they might amuse very, very young children, like 3 to 4 years old, but I can't see it getting a particularly large rewatch value. Simply because the plots aren't that engaging and the scripts dance wildly between being incredibly basic and monosyllabic to wildly overcomplicated and dealing with serious subjects such as animal preservation and climate change. These are things no child in their right mind are going to be able to comprehend, let alone enjoy. The animation left me a little bit confused as well. The foreground animation is very smooth, especially with the character movement, if not a little overly basic. Maybe a hint more detail might have swayed things for me, but here it's passable. The background animation, though, is absolutely dire, with 90% of the backing shots looking like our characters are stood in front of a green screen. They all look really flat and have no sense of depth. And when they do try for depth, it looks quite cheap. Again, if you were a really small kid, I don't think you'd particularly notice, but it was frankly glaring when I watched it. Crisply crap, as my partner put it when I showed her a clip. And to be fair, I think she's not the nail on the head here. The voice acting is a bit of a mixed bag as well, with Anxious the Elephant and Bradley the Bear sounding frankly atrocious. But then Polly, who's voiced by Deborah Andrew Oliver, the same person who voices Anxious the Elephant, and Greedy the Gorilla, my favourite character, thought you'd like to know, are really good. Not award-winning, but a real attempt at being entertaining. Rory the Tiger makes an appearance as well as the lead host on the station, and he's pretty good too. He gets quite a few padded lines, but the voice actor for the character does a good job of keeping him upbeat, so hats off to him. All in all, this animation is almost 20 minutes long, but realistically could have been 10. There's a ton of padding in this, and quite a lot of pushing climate change facts. Which, I mean, hey, I'm totally cool with that, but your key audience might not be. Personally, if I'd had a say on how this should have worked, I'd have maybe gone for producing 4 5-minute episodes that dealt with a quick story each episode, rather than one 20-minute story that dealt with one plot in a convoluted way. The animation was written by Niraj Kapoor, who hasn't got an IMDb listing or any online presence that I can find, and it was directed by Richard Smart and Mark Vale, who don't have any other directing credits to their name, but Richard Smart did do some artwork for the Jellykins, an early 2000s preschooler show that I'd completely forgotten about until I saw it in his listings. I'll have to get to that one at some point. It's a hoot. The other two productions on this disc are both about 20 minutes long and are live-action recordings of two stage plays that would have been performed live on stage at the holiday camps. The characters are portrayed by men and women in full-body costume suits, and much like the animation, these shows both hit a major problem immediately out of the gate. You see, these stage shows rely heavily on audience participation, and rather than capture a performance that was being played to an audience live, they instead decided to film the plays themselves in an empty theatre, and then intercut that with footage of kids watching one of the performances live. Only there are three problems in doing that. The first is that they don't really make much of an effort to blend the footage together, so it regularly cuts from a crowded audience to a totally empty theatre. They seem to have forgotten to record any audio of the audience, and as a result all the scenes where it does cut to the crowd are dubbed over with stock audience reaction audio. Generic reaction audio at that. So you get this really weird Lynchian effect whereby the animals will be performing to a clearly empty theatre, which will then cut from the stage to reveal a suddenly fully populated audience screaming and cheering out of sync to an invisible stage. Another problem is the audience participation elements haven't been removed from this recording, meaning there are long protracted moments where Rory the tiger will say something like, "When I say pull, you all shout pull! Pull!" Only for there to be an absolutely deadly silence. All of those elements are only made worse by the choice to shoot both of these productions for coverage, meaning that they filmed with 2 or 3 cameras as wide as they possibly could, so that when they got into the post room to begin editing them down, they could just zoom in on the shots they liked. It means you constantly feel a distance from the action, and even when they've digitally zoomed in, it does little to help cheer the situation up. That, coupled with the lack of audience reaction and room tone, creates a totally joyless environment, almost a vacuum. I'm certain that if you saw these live, you'd probably think they were alright. No masterpiece, but a reasonable way to shut your kid up for 20 minutes. On DVD, they just don't work at all. Also, Polly's real-life outfit is one of the most terrifying things I've seen since Marigold from Polka Dot Shorts. Or Pop. I do have to give some credit to the actors in the suits though. It takes a lot of energy and effort to animate costumes like that, and they do a totally good job of keeping the energy up as best they can. And as I say, I think if you saw these live, they'd be surprisingly entertaining. They even use puppets in 1 or 2 of the shorts, including a parrot called Manic who squawks relentlessly, who reminded me of Pliny from Hister's Eye. The lighting on both of these is far from ideal. While I noticed a real attempt was made to give the fringes of the stage a vignette, the majority of these performances are spotlit from the ceiling, meaning that everything on the stage looks a bit unflattering, and it really makes the costumes look quite cheap, muggy and dirty. The 2 live shows are called Jungle Jive Live and Way Out West Live, and both are really much of a much. If I had to pick a personal favourite, I'd say Jungle Jive was marginally better, if only because Way Out West seems to be a bit more talky than Jungle was, which works to its detriment because I found my brain wandering after a certain time. That, and there's a less than flattering sequence in which Rory the tiger comes out in a full Native American headdress and starts rain dancing and asking for to make friend. Which most definitely would not be something you'd see on a kid's DVD in 2018. Oh, and other than the lead characters, these live shows have absolutely no connection to the animation. They're just on this DVD because. As of the 2000s, the Tiger Club became the Seaside Squad, and as far as I can tell, business is going well for Haven. Even more impressively, in the 10 years since this DVD, the live shows still happen, though the emphasis appears to have moved now more to keeping the beaches clean over animal preservation. They also still look as nightmarish as ever, and kids appear to love them still, so good on them. As I said at the top of this review, visiting a holiday camp in the UK is a rite of passage for many kids, and it's nice to see the tradition is still going to this day. This DVD, however, is not a good reflection of that. It's aimed at very young children, and with the exception of the animation, which in and of itself was just about passable, the rest was just bereft of any emotional feeling. I'm sure they would have worked fine, if not been a little convoluted, live. But here, well, they just lack any kind of charisma or vibrance. It borders on looking more like a staff training tape than it does a fun-time kids series. While I have to admire Haven for considering and actually attempting this, I'm afraid the poor direction, lack of cinematography, poor editing and lighting choices left me feeling almost as cold as those nights in their holiday parks many years ago.